Live. Garden Report preview.
We'll do it live.
Offseason preview. We're going to do it live with Josue Pavone, Bobby Manning, Jimmy Toscano.
That's right, live as F.
Yeah, and we've got some news. We've got some drama. We've got a lot of cool stuff actually going on right now. So we're going to talk about it all. We had breaking news today where the Sixers are going to sign Daryl Morey. That's good for them. I think potentially bad for the Celtics because that's not going to be a gong show organization.
It's frightening. It's frightening for sure.
Yeah.
Facts.
NBA.
What's he won?
Huh?
What's Daryl Morey won? He hasn't won shit.
3 games against the Warriors. That means a
Look at y'all
lot.
getting defensive already. Jeez. Go ahead, John. Continue.
Where everyone's already scared. Let's give him a second.
We've got a grim picture of what NBA revenues might look like next year, how that's going to impact the offseason and next season. A start date that literally not a human being associated with the NBA thinks is a good idea. But
those owners.
Except for owners. Because they want that dough, man. They want a full season. They need a lot. And again, obviously that's tied to the revenue here. They need as much revenue as they could possibly generate to make up for probably having at least half, if not an entire season without fans. It's going to be a grisly picture next year. But we're starting with our man Gordon Hayward, who, according to a report, could take the Al Horford approach, they're calling it, an opt-out.
We don't like hearing that name.
Just to refresh everybody, in case you don't remember what Al Horford did, everyone assumed he'd opt in and or play ball, tear up his deal, and re-sign a new one, a team-friendly deal, because he's Al. He's awesome. He loves it here. And he didn't. And it almost screwed the Celtics. It ended up being actually a fortuitous thing that Horford left, and they don't have him on the books right now for 3 or 4 years. But Hayward might be looking to do the same thing, and this could be bad for a lot of reasons.
You know what's the scary thing there is that the Atlanta Hawks are a team that Zach Lowe mentioned on that podcast where a lot of this guy.
Right, this was with Lowe and Simmons for everybody out there.
All right, Bobby Marks. Bobby Marks had a lot of the cap stuff there. So
yeah, but Lowe was saying the vibe around, just to set the scene for everybody who doesn't know what we're talking about. Lowe was saying the vibe around Hayward is odd, and he can't quite place it, but that's what he compared it to Horford, which is nobody's quite get to happen here, but there's a vibe that he might be sniffing around, looking at his market right now, and wondering if when free agency comes, he's thinking, is the money out there that I don't know is going to be out there or not? Everyone's assuming the 36 million is the most he's going to get, and there's a vibe that he might be seeing it. Maybe I can lock something up right now. So, Bobby, go ahead. But yeah, I just wanted to provide background context for people.
This links into some of the league stuff that we read about before we got on here too. The fact that a lot of the players this year aren't going to get their number salary. So Hayward, if he opted in, was going to be getting $34 million. He could lose as much as 30% of that, and maybe more with the numbers that we saw today. So it's in his interest financially to try to find some long-term guaranteed money beyond this year. So I think it's no mistake that there's a lot of noise around him right now, because there is a team in the Atlanta Hawks that I think is more intriguing for him than I think we gave credit to previously. They're not good, but they have $44 million in cap space. There's not a lot of players out there that they can kick that cap space back to future years with 1-year deals. And honestly, you look at this free agent market, Hayward's the best player, and it's not even close.
Van Vliet maybe, but I'm with you. He's up there. Yeah, no question. That's a good point, Bobby. Yeah, I think if you're the Atlanta Hawks too, you want someone like Hayward, right? You want someone who could come in there, veteran experience, isn't going to be expected to be one of the top guys, mentor these young guys, because Atlanta, they believe they're there. They're ready to compete in the playoffs or at least take that next step. And I think Gordon Hayward would certainly push them forward, and especially what was the kind of money he's commanding. I mean, for what you're getting out of him, it's a pretty valuable contract moving forward. Of course, you have to hope he doesn't get hurt. That's the big what if here. But also another team that's out there who is not – it's not a team that everyone's crazy about. They're sort of one of the laughing stocks of the league. That's the New York Knicks. No question. The New York Knicks are going to do their best to go out and get someone like Fred VanVleet. But if they strike out, what's wrong with someone like Gordon Hayward, especially someone like Gordon Hayward who could essentially go there and say, I don't know, I don't want to call it the Marcus Morris route because I think he'd have to stay there for more than 1 year, but maybe he could sort of add some, value to his name moving forward after a year or two. You go to New York, you got young talent, another similar situation. I mean, I don't know if they're quite far along compared to New York and compared to Atlanta and Trae Young. But they do got to have a couple pieces in there. Robinson's a big man. Obviously RJ Barrett is their future. So there's a couple of options. I mean, those are the only two teams realistically I think could step up to the table and offer Hayward a 3-year deal that's not going to break the bank.
Okay, but here's my question: does it make sense for Gordon Hayward? Is it just about money for Gordon Hayward? Because if it was just about money, wouldn't he have just re-signed with the Utah Jazz? I mean, isn't there a little bit more to the fit, the comfortability? He's got a big family now, 4 kids, and a wife, and I know that family's huge for him. The Knicks are a tough organization to just jump in. I mean, talk about a team.
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure.
With a lot of pressure, screwy culture. Tough place to be, New York City, during a pandemic. On top of it all.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So I'm not sure if that's a good fit. Now, if you're Gordon Hayward, you opt out knowing something because
Hayward's not a New York kind of guy, too, and you got.
What about Robin though? Hey, you know the vibes. Come on, Robin Hayward.
I don't see New York,
dude. She's in Indiana.
So
here's the thing. If you're Gordon Hayward, there's a lot of, and if you're the Boston Celtics, there's a lot of other variables at play here. I mean, the article that just came out today from Woj and Lowe was talking about the reported income from the NBA and the loss that they took, how that could potentially affect the salary cap or not affect it if they're going to find ways to keep it constant. But if you're Gordon Hayward, if you're the Boston Celtics, how does that affect your negotiations and what you're willing to pay down the road when you're not, or if you're Gordon Hayward, what you're willing to risk down the road if you're not sure where this cap is heading in the next couple of years? Because if they play a season without fans again, they're going to lose a ton of money. I mean, that just based on the numbers we saw today.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll get to that in a minute because that is going to impact some things. But I mean, wouldn't that theoretically mean that Hayward, there's not going to be money out there for him next year? To me, right. So for me, it's twofold. I don't see it mainly because he needs to show something. He's still a risk out there. I just don't see that. Yeah, like Bobby, you say he's the best player out there. Maybe, he hasn't put together a complete season in 4 years. That's a big deal.
Before the shutdown, it's easy to forget that if you're watching the Celtics, but if you're looking at things from a different perspective, like a thirsty team like the Knicks or the Hawks, you're like, wait a minute, this guy could really help us out.
You really think
he returned also? That's an encouraging sign.
Do you think Gordon Hayward puts one of these teams over the top? Like, to me, I don't see it at all.
I think he's closer than a lot of guys.
Hayward's a guy you spend. If you're another team, Hayward to me is the guy. If you're another team, you spend way more money than the value you're getting in order to bring him over. He's the type of guy that you're like, oh, we got somebody, and then fans are going to be like, we're paying this guy what? Like, I just don't. He's not that guy. He's not that guy. Well, he's good and he has value. And here's the thing. 2 things can be true. The Celtics can't replace him, even if he is overpaid here, and they don't get his money if he walks out the door. So it's a freaking disaster if he leaves. It's bad. The Celtics need him to stay, at least so they have the asset or the money or his value, because they can't replace it with the $8 million they're going to have to sign somebody if he leaves. He's immensely valuable to the Celtics. Some other team you think is going to pony up $30 million for this guy? I can't see it. I can't see it.
The other thing is when you were comparing Al Horford to Gordon Hayward situation.
I'm not going to take $30 million, man. It's a completely different situation.
What do you think it is?
20 average, 30, 3 years, 60 something million.
But that's what we're talking about.
Why would he opt out then?
That's what we're telling the Celtics. The Celtics comes do down to tomorrow.
It comes down to him getting 60 to 75 million guaranteed over multiple years.
75 over 3 or more.
Versus that one time.
Okay.
And that 34 isn't 34 like we keep saying. And that's the other thing too. Like, I think ultimately the best thing that the Celtics and Hayward can get done here is a 2-3 year deal that gets him some guaranteed money long term and doesn't have that, 34 million possibly expiring that John mentioned hanging over them all year, because you know what that's going to lead to? Are they trading Hayward? Are they trading Hayward every single week all year? And all of a sudden that becomes another cloud over the team. there's risk to signing him long term. We know the injuries. We don't even know how he's going to recover from this last one, even though it seems relatively minor. Maybe it takes him some time to get back again. So there's risk if you do this now. I just think it's the least riskiest of all of these, because if you lose him, it's a disaster.
It's definitely.
But Bobby, it also could be a disaster in a couple of years. I mean, look, the money, we don't know what's going to look like in a couple of years.
So Kemba could be too. I think you're maximizing right now.
Maximize who?
Okay.
The team.
Yeah, but how do you lock in all those guys? We're talking about 4 players making well over $25 million. This is not going to work.
Well, I think you could get him back.
Tatum's going to get the bag, right? We all agree with that? I mean, unless you guys
for sure.
Well, you end up paying crazy.
Talking something else.
You end up paying a crazy tax if you're the Boston Celtics.
That's the other thing too. The team doesn't know where the tax is,
but
and
the
that kills everybody.
It's a bad thing, but at the end of the day, it's better than locking him in for 3 years. I'm sorry, I said it. Okay, Celtics fans, kill me, like whatever. You know what I mean? Like, let's face it, they don't want to do this. Kemba Walker, Tatum, Jaylen Brown. You got Jaylen Brown for a good price. You got Marcus Smart.
It's not that this way.
We'll get into him later, but
you can't replace him.
I get that, John. But if he doesn't opt in, what are you going to do?
Let's talk about the trade. Let's talk about the trade options.
We talked about this. Jimmy must speak.
I think what we should do, most likely to least likely scenarios, and I feel like it's still unlikely for him to opt out, because I think that
I think he might do it.
Okay, fine.
He might
we can talk
about it.
Don't
want that to happen, but
all right, Jimmy, you rank them.
No, I just want to say, sure. I think the first thing I think he opts in for this final year. It's a lot of money. It allows the Celtics.
It's not 34 though. It could be like
much?
26, 24 even. Like they're gonna take like 30-40% out of its players' salaries this year.
Look, I'm saying that's the best case scenario for the Celtics. But if he opts out, the world's not over for the Celtics.
It is.
How, John?
Yes, it is. It definitely is, Joe Sway.
Because that was the worst thing.
If he opts out,
that production walks out the door, and you're left with $7 million to replace.
You could have Semi Ojeleye in the starting lineup.
There's still the MLE. You don't know what's going to happen with Cantor. I mean, listen, obviously,
you
can't replace
Cantor's gone. Cantor, they're going to
right, but they can either have the full. They can either have the full MLE or
they'll have the full MLE. Yeah.
So you prefer to lock him in and then move forward?
He's really good, Joe Sway. He is.
No, I understand that, but
for 3 years,
you're gonna lock in. How are you gonna lock it? So you're
doing it.
What, to flip him?
You tear this. No, two things happen. You tear this up, and you sign him for 3 years. Now you have a salary you can trade for the next 2 and 3 years, which is great. And a player who you can't possibly replace for the amount of money you'll have if he walks. It's a no-brainer that they would sign him to an extension. It's a no-brainer.
I think they would too.
But at what price, though? That's the thing, John. I mean,
I think it's going to be.
We don't know if the Hawks and Knicks are really that interested, but if the price is up there, you willing to see the Celtics do that?
So here's the thing. I did the math last night. If you sign him the 20 to 24 million for this year, the Celtics could actually avoid the luxury tax this year if they trade the 30th pick or send it overseas.
Can I tell you how little I care about luxury taxes?
No, but if that matters,
these are billionaires. Pay luxury taxes. Pay some taxes. Pay any tax.
No, I agree. But if it does matter, then
when you pay it for 3 years in a row, now you're paying even more on top of it.
Who cares?
I don't care, but
this is their ploy. Okay,
somebody might care. Might care.
If
they're not good enough to win, I guarantee you, Wick will care.
What does Wick make his money from?
Owners have professional teams like they have, my third yacht.
Yeah, well, go talk to John Henry about that then, because I'm looking at Mookie Betts in a Dodgers uniform.
To have fun and to win. Money doesn't matter. Spend. I don't want to hear luxury tax.
But
do what it takes. Okay.
I get it.
I will never watch another baseball game for the rest of my life because the Red Sox traded away Mookie Betts to get under a luxury tax threshold.
Right,
okay? Done. Owners, I don't want to hear tax. Do what it takes, okay? Pay the penalties, sign the guy, have the best team possible.
If you're a GM, I don't know if you're looking at Gordon Hayward the way that the Sixers looked at Al Horford. I think part of the Sixers signing Al Horford was taking him away from the Celtics, right? I mean, unless there's a contender that I'm not thinking of that's going to be chomping at the bit to scoop up Gordon Hayward, he might not have that same market. Even if he is the best free agent or one of the best free agents in the class, I think that says more about the class than it says about Gordon Hayward. And I think teams are going to be hesitant to lock themselves up into a heavy deal, not knowing if the salary cap's going to shrink on them.
His leverage isn't huge, but I do think the opt-out case is pretty strong. He prevents himself from getting traded to any possible destination.
Could he opt out to re-sign with the Celtics?
That's how he would do it. And I don't think it makes sense.
Out and re-sign a new 3-year deal in the 20-something million range.
Now the Celtics
can do that because they have his rights.
The Celtics might have to go higher than they want to there. Bernardoni said 60 overall. I think it could be closer to 75 if the Hawks get involved.
60 is the deal we want to see.
60 sounds right.
That might be low. I agree. I'm thinking you said 70. I think 70. But again, what do we know? We thought Horford was in the bag for what we were talking about.
Oh, and he was 130.
But we thought
out of nowhere.
Horford was gonna do a 3 and 60 or something like that, And everyone was like, everyone will be happy with that, right? And he's like, fuck that. I've got, and then he went and signed what he signed. Nobody saw that coming. So you're right, Bobby. It only takes one. It takes one to set the market. And if he is the best player out there and you have one team that's like, I got to do something, you're right. One team can set the market. And if one team is willing to go 100 million guaranteed over 3, that's hard.
That's the thing. If you're the Atlanta Hawks, I mean, do you realistically do that? And that's the team that I thought of when Jaylen Brown was up. I was like, if the Celtics don't lock in Jaylen, he could go to Atlanta. And luckily, or at least
Jaylen Brown is not Gordon Hayward. Jaylen Brown is not Gordon.
Right, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. That kind of money to go from Jaylen to Hayward, that's a tough thing if you're Atlanta. So maybe they're not all that.
We think of him as Hayward on the Celtics. If he was a more central figure on a team, I think he could be worth the price because ultimately he's just kind of a dish out secondary ball handler on the Celtics. He's a luxury to them. Whereas on another team like the Hawks or even the Cavaliers, who have shown interest in him, he would be a central figure on a young team. The question is, does he want to go to a loser? Does he want to go to a place like Cleveland? I still think
he's a second option on a bad team. I still,
Cleveland.
I don't think that's in him anymore.
Does he think that? Maybe this is a way for him.
It doesn't matter. You're looking at NBA. You're looking at NBA GMs. Is an NBA GM thinking that I could build around Gordon Hayward? I don't think so anymore.
So
he's a nice piece,
Joe Sway mentioned something interesting earlier. He said if the money mattered to him, he would have re-signed in Utah.
No, that was me.
Oh, it was Jimmy. Credit where it's due. Misappropriating.
I'm not saying it doesn't matter.
No. This is what concerns me about this. I hope it's not something else. I hope it's not the BS fans and going at Robin online and freaking out about him every time he gets injured and this and that and just saying all this dumb stuff about him, because I think we can all agree no one's been more unfairly treated online than Hayward in these past few seasons with the Celtics. Like, it's been unbelievable, especially this season where he was actually good and he just had a few freak injuries. I think it's been worse for Hayward. I think
average Al. Are you kidding?
Al took a lot of flack.
People are looking at Al's box scores in game 2, and they're like 12 points and 7 rebounds for the max contract.
This is the problem, and I'm glad you bring Al in on that. Now, like, it's not that the athletes can't tune this out.
But then again, he left.
But when you're going to their family members, like they did with Anna, like they've done with Robin, like that's going to get back to them. Like they hear that, they're like, why are they saying this? They go to them and they're like, why are they saying this? And
I got news for you.
It's a problem.
Yeah, it happens everywhere, dude.
There's they in every city. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
You're going to it doesn't matter where you are, wherever
to the level of Boston.
Yes. I mean, look, unless it's Miami, maybe Philly. Our live stream saw that, Miami, wherever the hell you are.
Players,
you think Toronto wouldn't be making jokes? Yeah, they'd be all over him.
Yeah. Professional athletes, they understand what it is now. That they're all growing up in the social media era, and I'm sure that they coach their families and letting them know, hey, you want to put yourself out there like Anna Horford does. You want to put yourself in the middle of it all. You're gonna hear it, So. I don't necessarily think it's a problem.
What about when they're telling Robin to have her baby early?
Well,
we might have done that too.
That was more of a request than a demand.
Yeah,
that was more of a request.
It was just kind of we were just saying work with us,
Yeah, meet us in the middle.
We want everything to go well, but just work it out.
Right, yeah. And that did ended up not being an issue. So it all worked.
That falls in the passionate fan category. I don't see any lines being crossed. Come on.
Yeah, I don't either. And people kind of right. I think he
He gets
I
it.
don't think
that's
not going to factor into his decision. I would be
plus
stunned
also there's a massive homery base here too. There's a lot of defenders out there for every one, Jimmy Toscano out there, friggin' Yahoo, just
right.
throw yeah.
Right here, right.
Then there's this version of Jimmy.
Yeah. I can play both sides of the equation.
With the Celtics, there's fanboy Jimmy with his hard hat.
There's a lookalike defending him over here. So I think the thing we didn't mention here, the trade ideas, that's the other aspect to this, especially if he opts in.
He's got to opt in.
Yeah, if he opts in, there's a strong case to trade him, and that's where I was a week ago.
Right, that's what we said last week on the pod. Was trade him if he opts in. You can't risk him not being here. You really have to tear it up and resign. You have to opt out with a resign or opt in and trade. You cannot lose the asset. You can't have him walk. So you almost have to trade him.
So if you're Gordon Hayward, knowing that,
pick your destination.
So he opts in. He's not on the team anymore, according to you guys.
If I'm GM, I don't know what Danny does.
And they don't have to do it right away. They could always wait till the deadline too.
Yeah, you wait till the deadline.
It's a good point, Jimmy.
Wait to the deadline. If you
no,
Jimmy, screw up the whole team.
Hey, if it turns into a championship, Jimmy, you don't think it'll be worth it?
Jimmy, it's a good point though. If his
numbers go down, you can bring him back at a lower rate. Sorry.
If he opts in, he knows it's a certainty. He gets traded, so why not pick your own destination? Then again, you're only being traded for a few months, and you get to pick it anyway.
Well, you don't get to pick it because it's only Cleveland, Atlanta, and New York. Like they're limited, so that's the other side of that.
You're not going to trade him at the trade deadline. Is that what you said, Josue?
No, I'm saying like if it was up to the trade deadline, that would be the last possibility. But then if there's nothing there, which probably won't be, you just keep him for the playoff run. And if it turns into a championship, who's going to complain?
Well, no. If it turns into a championship, I don't think anybody would complain. But that's a massive if. You're not
NBA Finals appearance, man.
I don't think you can treat this year as an all-in year. There's just too many other great teams.
You're not. Like I said, you're building for 2023.
Are you?
That's what I keep looking at that target.
Then trademark is smart.
I keep looking at that time when you're going to have to surround Jalen and Jason with the team that's going to keep them here for the rest of their career.
You also have this time right now, though, where Hayward's very good and Kemba's still very good.
Why do you think they're so far from NBA Finals? Like,
I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is the most important benchmark to me is that kind of 2.0 portion of their careers where you have to make sure you can't sell out for now and leave yourself holding the bag because you'll have nothing. Okay. Those guys will pal up and go to a cool city and see you later. And then you're friggin' back into
So you're telling me if Gordon stays for another year, opts in, and then he leaves, the Celtics are doomed. They're no longer.
You're not doomed. You've just lost another asset. You're out. Danny's out of draft picks now, so he's lost his capital. Right. You need that salary and or a player of his capabilities on the roster. And if you have nothing to replace it, it weakens you. That's all I'm saying.
You don't have the picks. You don't have the trade.
You don't have the picks. You don't have the salary to trade. You've got nothing. You have no trade.
Look,
if you don't have any cap space, so you can't improve. You got to hit a home run in the middle to late stages of a draft, which we are clearly seeing has not happened.
This is the end.
What I'm worried about is Atlanta. If Atlanta doesn't do it, then I think the Celtics can sort of maybe not name their price, but they can work with Hayward and they'll get it for a reasonable price. But that's the only thing I'm really worried about is the Hawks.
And even if Atlanta does pursue him, you'll have to pay a little bit more. But I still think you should do it. I still think you should do it. Where else are you going to put that money? As long as it's 3 years or less, because 2023, you're going to want a lot of money coming off the books. I think Smart comes up after 22. But the other reason you might want to trade him is if you get a Miles Turner back, if you get a TJ Leaf or some of these other guys from the Pacers, they're not great, but they're tradable assets into the future. You could trade those guys in 2021. You could trade those guys in 2022. If you lose Hayward, what are you talking about for trade assets? Smart, and that's it. Because you're not moving Brown, you're not moving Tatum, and unless you hit a home run in the draft, how are you going to improve?
Exactly. So they're in a really tough spot. I think that wrinkle of like him sniffing around, I think the dilemma we were looking at last week was very much, opt in and then risk trading him and possibly getting worse because you're not going to get the same value back in return in a trade. And that would have been the dilemma. You take one step back in order to maybe take 2 steps forward down the road. Now, when you enter in this new report and this new vibe of like him looking for that Horford scenario, I think it really just changed the dynamic because, now it's like, shit, we need him. So,
this kills me though, and disagree with me if you want here. I still think this team's best chance.
Sway's been on Hayward since when? Since his minutes when he started coming back, right?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. He was Stephen A.
Problem, okay. He
was the problem with 2019.
That's true.
He's going to rip it off, and there's going to be a Jay Crowder jersey underneath that sweatshirt right now. Okay, it's been personal since we ran Jay out of town to bring Hayward.
I'm actually going to. I'll hang it up here next time.
Jay Crowder, for what he's getting paid, y'all would love some Jay right about now.
Jay was great in the finals.
I wouldn't.
Or not the finals, the rest of the playoffs.
Yeah,
I still think the Celtics' best chance to win a championship is having Brown, Smart, Hayward, Kemba, and Tatum healthy all at the same time, which we never saw last year.
We got Doc Rivers here.
Might be a pipe dream.
Never lost a playoff series when healthy.
Yeah. That,
right.
And you might never get to that, but I still think you want to give it another shot. And that's why I think the long-term extension is the best move here.
Yeah.
I mean,
all right.
What about trades? I mean, are there trades that you'd be happy with? I know we mentioned Turner. I mean, Zach Lowe mentioned
the Portland one stunk.
Yeah,
Zach Collins.
That Indiana one's the one.
Footer.
It's that Indiana one that everybody's really stuck on here.
Yeah, because Turner's good. It fills a spot in need. Maybe you could get Oladipo in there somehow, and you're getting a star back with questions. It's intriguing for sure. And
it's intriguing because there's names attached. Whether or not they fit here remains to be seen.
You also don't burn a bridge with Hayward, which matters. Like, he would be happy going there. He would. So
I don't care.
A lot of things work.
Gives a shit. Like Danny Ainge is worried about burning.
Here you go.
Hey.
What about the Hawks? What about Atlanta? Clint Capella again. That name came back up.
They'll sign him if they want him. They're not going to trade for him.
No.
I don't
OKC.
I don't love any of the other ones except for the Indiana because it's always like, well, what if Oladipo regains that
Right.
There's always a chance, but you don't know.
Yeah.
All right, we spent a long time on Hayward. Let's move on because we're going to keep talking about it because it's going to continue to be a story. What's our date for free agency, Bobby?
None yet.
I know. Where are they? What's being kicked around now? I know it's not settled.
December 1st, probably. Although if they do this December 22nd start date, it'd probably be like November 19th.
Yeah, I read one article today about like how squeezed this all could be. It's
going to be insane. Yeah.
Absolute. I mean, this is going to be fun, by the way, because we could do this thing nightly. It's going to be a free
if they do December 22nd, we'll do our draft show. We'll have a free agency show the next night, and then training camp starts December 1st. Yeah. And that'd be awesome. I don't think it's gonna happen, but man, that would be fun.
All right, let's move to the other big story today, and that's
real quick. Hold on, real quick.
No, I've moved on. I changed the graphic.
Come on, Oh, you did. All right.
Go ahead. What do you want?
No, I was gonna say real quick. We're talking about like 2023 and Gordon Hayward and all this stuff. The Celtics. I think what we're missing is the Celtics need to hit on some sort of draft pick in this from now until then, right? Because they've kind of missed some of these middle picks we've talked about, and the whole way of bridging and getting those low contracts in there and mixing with a high contract like Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum is you have those guys to bridge it. So you're not saying, 2023 is a hard cutoff. It's going to be a whole new lineup. Then it's like you need to. Listen, if you're the Celtics and you don't like anybody in this draft, you need to figure out a way to get into next year's first round. Because like you said, John, they don't have any future first. They need to start working some of those. Danny Ainge had to start building some of those future firsts again because there might be a player, if it's not in this offseason, it could be at the deadline or it could be next offseason, where they might need to have some of those extra assets because some of their player assets aren't that valuable. Romeo, you can go down the line with some of their recent draft picks that you can't get a whole lot for. I mean, you're going to be giving some picks. So, you're trying to give some away. I think if you can't figure out a way to trade them.
Imagine how little this would matter if they won the freaking coin flip a couple of years ago and just ended up with Tyler Hero, and we'd be like, yeah, Gordon can opt out.
Please opt out.
They also could add Kevin Durant.
It's unbelievable. All right. So may I, Jimmy? Can I change the graphic?
Yeah, we're good now. I wanted to get that off my chest.
Read it right there. 76ers to hire Daryl Morey to run their basketball operations. It says it right here. How about that? That was a bit of a, I mean, I know people were wondering what was going to happen when Morey left the Hornets. I didn't think this would happen this quickly. This makes sense. But really interesting move here by Philly. And I think if you're a Boston fan, it's definitely going to worry you a little bit, because now you feel like this organization that has had the talent and had the pieces and had the assets all this time was just run poorly. And now you've got somebody who might be able to move the pieces around, build the team, and be competitive here after the absolute dumpster fire that we saw in Philly last year and into the playoffs. And
really over the last
let's get initial
decade.
reactions here to the Morey signing. And again, I know immediately people are going to wonder what it means for the future of Embiid and Simmons. We'll kick that around. But first things first, just what do you guys think? What was your first thought? Jimmy, start with you.
My first thought was Elton Brand has been completely cucked. He didn't even lose his job. He just had to hand it over to somebody who was going to do it better than him and just kind of like watch while it happens. My second thought was what's going to happen to either Embiid or Simmons, because those are the two guys that when the Sixers no-showed in the playoffs, everyone said the Sixers have to blow it up. One of these guys has to go. And I think we pretty much said they can't trade either of those guys because the value is just they're not going to get anything close to what they should in return. So I'm very interested to see what Morey has in plan for those two, or if he has a plan for those two. Maybe one is favored over the other. I know he's a bit of a small ball guy, so I wonder how that's going to play. But yeah, I think if you're the Celtics, your antennas are up. Put it that way. They're a lot higher than they were prior to this signing, because Daryl Morey is a very smart basketball mind, and like you said, John, he can sort of bring some stability, maybe some leadership over to that organization, and get them going in the right direction.
It's an interesting pair.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting, but I don't know if we can just jump to the assumption that this is gonna turn into a team with a bunch of shooters, at least not right away. I think he's gonna work with Doc Rivers a bit. I thought it was interesting that the hiring of Doc Rivers came first before this.
Right.
And
normally, right.
You pick your coach, and I think moving forward, Doc Rivers, I don't know. Something tells me that they're going to have to blow this thing up. I mean, I think Doc Rivers had Ben Simmons in mind. I think they had a big part of his decision to go over there. I think he wants to mentor him. Doc's a big point guard guy, superstar point guards. He loves them. I think this is sort of his next challenge, his next project, years removed from Chris Paul. And then now you look at what's going to happen next. Do you move Embiid? I would try to move Embiid. I know some people don't want to hear that, but I think you have to split these two. It's not going to work out. And because of the restrictions you have on the cap, you sort of have to make a move here and do something drastic. One move, if you're looking drastic, if you're thinking big picture here, I mean, just because of who Doc is and the kind of team he had in LA, what happens if they decide to trade for someone like Gobert? Does that change things? Take a small step back before you take a step forward. Now, Gobert's bird rights would go with him. You can bring him back. You send over Embiid, which would give the Denver Nuggets someone that can compete against Jokic. Maybe that gets them over because obviously the Denver Nuggets were in their way. And maybe moving forward, the Philadelphia 76ers can have that space and then move Al Horford. That's the goal here. Wow. Doc, I'm trying to move him. Maybe not this year or next year, but you have to get from under that contract, get some expiring deals into the picture, and then moving forward, you can try to grab some big free agents. I think they have to take a step back a bit before they can truly go forward.
I'm with you, Josue, because Doc and Daryl don't seem like a match made in heaven, especially the way they typically run their systems. Doc's more old school. Daryl's on that new wave. He created the new wave. So I do think he's going to be trying to fix this roster gradually, and that could start immediately with an Embiid trade. And when it comes to Simmons and Embiid, it's got to be Embiid. He's older. He's who he is. Simmons ultimately has the long-term potential to be one of the best players in this league. Embiid's there now, and I think he is who he is. So I'm a little worried.
He is who he is. He's a stud, though. When he's got his head in the game, he's a stud.
Yeah, for what a center can be in today's league. I just don't see Daryl going forward with a star center. And again, Embiid
attitude in the bubble. I don't know, man. Doc's not about that.
Yeah. So Doc's going to try to make it work in the time being. I just think Daryl's going to have some bigger plans long term, get the draft capital up, try to position themselves for a big trade like he did with James Harden in the past. And in the meantime, maybe bring in some shooters and get this closer to being an operation to what he had in Houston.
And that's what I think. I think anything and everything you can do to get out from Horford is job one if you can. The problem.
Call New York.
That's job one. And if you can do that, I think Simmons and Embiid can coexist. I think that is an overplayed narrative that the two absolutely can't coexist together. I think they absolutely can if you surround them with shooters. They just didn't surround them with shooters this year. Right. And I think that's what Morey's good at and going to do. I do have to look at it. If you did have to, if they were on an island and he's got to pick one to go with and one to leave behind, I can't see Simmons being the guy he sticks with for being a guy who likes to spread the floor and shoot a lot of threes and have a guy that is literally petrified of the three-point line.
Yeah, but name another point guard who's better at getting three-point shots, though. You know,
how many games is Daryl Morey?
Doc Rivers is going to get him to shoot too. I'm not saying he's going to turn into Steph Curry, but he has to shoot. Doc's going to make him shoot. He did it with
Rondo. Not do it.
Daryl Morey.
That mid-range. Look, Rondo did it. It was ugly, but Rondo had to do it. He had to.
He's going to last one quarter in this position on the Sixers if Ben Simmons doesn't start taking three-pointers. That's literally what Daryl Morey is. He's literally that's literally all he wants you
it's going to be like the Austin Powers fembots, you know, like just heads going.
Ben Simmons, his
one head of them is going to explode. Watching one quarter of Simmons, but we said he was going to shoot. Like he's not going to be able to handle it.
When Ben Simmons saw the news today,
boom, you know,
Ben Simmons looking at his phone, seeing that Daryl Morey is the new president of basketball.
Yeah, right.
Right.
He's going to literally text 29 GMs in the first quarter of the first game.
Yeah.
This dude needs to come out in the first game of the season and just start ripping three-pointers. It doesn't matter if he misses all 10. Really, it doesn't matter. Just take them. Just get it in, get in the flow of it. That's going to be Daryl Morey's message, I would imagine, before he even says hello. He's probably already texting Ben Simmons about that right now.
It's amazing, though. On a separate note, it is amazing because, like, you know, if you had a child, like, this is like if you have a child and you're like, you have to do this or else I'm not going to let you play. Like, you have to do this thing. You know, like,
yeah.
And Doc's voice into that, and that's what Doc's doing.
And they still don't do it. It's like, how many times did Brett Brown say, like, we talked about it and it's going to happen? And then, like, and he wouldn't
does
do it.
Doc speak a different language? What's he going to do to do anything different?
Again, to use my crappy analogies, you know, like every time Willie Mays Hayes popped one up in Major League, they made him do 20 push-ups. Like literally in the preseason, I would tell Ben Simmons, you can only shoot three-pointers. And if you do anything other than shoot a three-pointer, I'm going to take you out of the game. You know, like
laps.
That's it. Laps, doesn't matter. Push-ups, just
suicides.
Something. It's amazing. He won't do it. He can't do it.
Yeah, it feels like Philly's throwing darts around here when you think of the combination of some of these guys. Let's get the best coaching name we can see in Doc. Let's get the best GM name we can in Morey. And then they take a Pacers assistant who's known for his drop defense, and we saw how that drop defense looked last year. So you have three conflicting personalities there ultimately. So I'm interested to see how this is going to shake out. I also think it's interesting that Doc said he was going to take some time off. Morey said he was going to take some time off. And then they both get these hefty deals from Philly. I mean, this could be these guys cashing in as much as anything for Philly getting it on the other end.
It's a reasonable point.
Yeah.
I think Doc was kind of like, I guess I'll coach.
Yeah,
you know?
And Morey too. Like, well, maybe I'll go fix Philly. Like that doesn't sound fun to me.
The Morey news came out of nowhere when he left Houston. And he's like, oh, like my son just graduated high school. It's a good time to like reassess like what we're gonna do. It's like packing up the car, moving to Philadelphia, like 2 weeks later. It's like kind of unreal. But yeah, you're right, Bobby.
Got a brand new intern. It's my son. Yeah.
Yeah, plenty of incentive, I guess, to do that. I mean,
Philly.
Listen, I can't help but think that both Doc and Daryl Morey didn't take the job because of the potential upside there. And that upside is with Embiid and Simmons. So I can't imagine they're all thinking, how can we blow this team up, right, and start over? You think Doc Rivers wants to go and do a rebuild. We know for a fact that he doesn't want to do that. So
Yeah.
you can't tell me that they're trying to get rid of one or the other right now.
They're gonna give it a chance. They're gonna give it a chance before they do anything.
If you're Philly, you're hoping New York strikes out completely, and they're like, look,
Dude,
we'll get a veteran presence in here. Here's Julius Randle. Here's Wayne Ellington. Don't worry, both their contracts are going to expire in a year. You'll have fun.
Josue is trying to kill every last New Yorker left in the city with either Al Horford and Gordon Hayward.
They'll get Marcus Morris again too.
He wants the Knicks to acquire both.
It'll be hilarious. Come on, Jimmy. Every time they play the Celtics, like, oh look, it's our old buddy. Hey, union time.
Wait, where's Marcus Morris going?
I am curious though. When we talk about Morey, and being the kind of the grandfather, the father of the new modern NBA sort of thing, how much of that do you think is based on the talent that he already had in place, and how much of it was insisting that this is a system and then getting that talent? I mean, like if you've got Harden, that's what you got to do. So, do you think he's insistent on having this thing? Do the Sixers have to be a team that jacks 53s a game?
I think so. I think that's part of the puzzle here. He was sort of determined to get that out. That's his MO. He's determined that this can be championship basketball, and he won't let it go. So I think there'll be a mix of things. Him and the way he does things, the way Doc does things. But I do think Ben Simmons, just the ability that he's able to create so many 3-pointers, I think that's something that's been talked about heavily between those two guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't see.
And the Houston thing they did last year, I thought that was an anomaly. He'll make it work with an Embiid if he has to. So yeah, that Houston situation was awkward. I just think that, you had Russell Westbrook. He couldn't shoot threes. You had a hurt center. So they downsized as much as they could and made the best of that situation. And he'll have to do that here too, because it's not like they're going to put 4 elite 3-point shooters on the floor around Simmons day one. Like they're going to have to work within the constraints of this roster somewhat until a deal comes down the line.
Yeah. Well, I feel like after Chris Paul, they were sort of just guessing in Houston.
Right. I mean, and that Westbrook thing got shoved. That Westbrook thing got shoved onto him by James Harden, and what a disaster it was.
Hey,
one of the worst trades ever.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Westbrook was completely lost in the playoffs by the end. I mean, he couldn't even hit a free throw.
Yeah, possibly due to COVID. We'll see. But he was.
All right. Before we wrap it all up, we did want to talk about the December 22nd start date for the 2020.
Let's go. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Let's get back to the Garden in a month.
Which again, the timetable here again, the draft starts when, Bobby? November
18th.
18, right? And then you're looking at maybe free agency a week after that, week and a half, and then training camp go.
John looks tired thinking about it.
Right. No, this was refreshing. It is really weird though to not have basketball right now. I really miss I miss the bubble a little bit. I do too. We want to go back. I
knew it.
I can't wait to cover games, but I miss having NBA basketball on all day. It was freaking really cool.
It felt like the tournament every day.
The regular season, it felt like March Madness, and having it all day, and then playoffs every night, and it was just it was a cool thing, and it was and they did a good job with it. But I mean, holy wow, this is fast, man. I mean, this doesn't make any sense at all. Now you're talking about stars resting. Lakers are like, yeah, maybe I'll skip the first month or two. Like, I mean, this would be a disaster if LeBron's like, I'll see you in March, that's when I'll be ready. I don't get it. I also don't understand the philosophy of they need to start that early to be done by June, so they can do the Olympics. But if they start later, the season won't be over till September. Like, no, you're missing 2 months there. That doesn't make sense. That's fuzzy math. So I don't really get what they're doing, and it seems that the players are going to buck here.
Yeah, I think that's what it really boils down to. And obviously the big showcase is Christmas Day, right? That's the big NBA day. That's where they cash in. Obviously the NFL is still available, but I mean, for a lot of NBA fans or even guys who are not huge NBA fans, they may tune in. That's the big day. So that's their big marquee matchup lineups. And that's the day I think you'll see all the superstars play. After that, yeah, John, to your point, complete rest mode, especially for the champion Lakers. I mean, that's a lot to put on these guys' body. And of course, LeBron James did miss the postseason in 2019. But I mean, if you're the Los Angeles Lakers, you'd be crazy to put your complete team out there. But for a team like the Golden State Warriors, maybe that helps them in the beginning. You know, maybe that gets them off to the right foot while the other teams catch up, and they may struggle a bit. But you know, that'll get them going out from, you know, right out of the gate. But it'll make for an interesting start to the NBA season for sure, to see where every single team is at respectively.
All right. Yeah. So I don't think it's crazy. I think it makes a lot of sense. I mean, Josue already talked, and I pretty much agree with you completely, Josue, that, and what I said when we were predicting when the next season would start, I always said Christmas Day, Christmas Day. Basketball and Christmas Day are like peanut butter and jelly, right? And if you're the NBA, you're trying to figure out ways that you're going to make money next season because you're not anticipating full arenas. You need to make your money through advertising and ratings, right? And if all you have to do is show the players, hey, this is how much money we lost this year. I think it was $800 million alone just in not having fans. And they only didn't have fans for what? The last 10 games of the regular season and the playoffs. Now you're going to talk about 72 games in the playoffs or whatever it is. You have a percentage of fans. So you're going to lose a ton of money on fans. You need to figure out other ways to make money. So that's the NBA saying, listen, players, okay, fine. You don't want to start Christmas Day. You want to start middle of January or February. Fine. This is how much money you're going to lose out on, because guess what? Your salary is going into escrow, and, you know, we can only pay you X amount of money because we've only made X amount of money. So that's going to change a lot of NBA players' perspective when they see the numbers. And I mean, I just think that if you're the NBA, eventually you want to get back to a regular schedule. You can't be starting the season again in March or in February, playing all the way through until, you know, late August or September. You know, if you're the NBA, you got to slowly get back there. So if that means starting a little bit earlier, finishing in like July, because the Olympics don't start until like mid-July, I think.
Yeah, July 23rd.
You're still playing late into the summer, later than you normally would by a good month and a half for a lot of teams that aren't making the playoffs. So they got to do something here to slowly get back to normalcy.
Yeah, the difference right now between the league and the players, the league wants the day of Santa Claus. The players want the day of Martin Luther King. Right. It's about a month of a difference.
Almost a month.
Yeah. So
22.
It's a big month. So. It's a big month, though. It's a big month.
It's a big month because
football at some point.
Yeah, football Olympics. And the start of next year. Can you get yourself back to the normal league start time for 2021-22, which is what they're trying to do here. And
they're already knocking down games, right? They're going to go from 82 to 72 this season. So, like, they're already sort of saying, hey, players, we'll do you a little bit solid here. We'll take some games off of this. But we got to start sooner than. And let's not forget, we're talking about a handful of teams, and LeBron's, he is the NBA, so he's the most vocal. But there are a ton of teams where that start date is not going to affect them one iota.
8 teams out of 30 haven't played since March 11th.
That's what people forget, and it's easy to forget the Cavaliers.
March 11th.
I can't blame them.
Right.
The other guys were playing last week.
No, that's not true. The regular season was what? I mean, we're talking a handful of games, and then first round of the playoffs. Those guys have been out for a while. We're talking about
just that too. All but
we're probably talking about
16 playoff teams.
All but the Final Four.
All but the final,
like 8 teams, let's say.
Even the ones who played in the bubble and didn't make the playoffs were there for a freaking week, 2 weeks. You know, so they stopped playing in March. Then they played a tournament for 2 weeks.
Right.
Zion played 3 games.
So really, you're talking about a hugely disproportionate disadvantage for the Final 4 and 8 teams.
Hey, and you know what, LeBron?
Maybe
take your month off.
Levels the playing field a little bit, right? We're talking about the best teams, anyways.
You're socialist.
This LeBron threat too.
Stealing from the rich, baby.
You don't think LeBron's gonna skip Christmas Day? I mean, with this month holdout that he's talking about, he's not gonna show up for Christmas, or is he just gonna go to Christmas and wait till Martin Luther King Day and be a holiday worker?
What was the first thing LeBron
said? Probably.
What was the first thing LeBron said when somebody said, "Oh, they're talking about continuing the season without the fans"? What did LeBron say?
Great.
No chance I'm playing an NBA game without the fans. Who played more NBA games without the fans than LeBron? I think he probably played the most. So, I mean, listen, players are going to react the way they're going to react. Sure, like that makes sense. That's a normal reaction if you're the Lakers. You're a week off from winning the title, and you're going to go back to work in 3 weeks. So I understand that reaction, but
it's so soon.
It's gonna happen.
Look, who was it? Was it Marcus Morris? Damn, I forget who said it. But what was it? Right before they started things in Orlando. Hey, if LeBron says we're playing, we're playing.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, there's other people opposing this too: trainers, executives, coaches,
Well, the
everybody.
What are the trainers saying?
You don't want.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Let's make sure we get their opinion.
You
don't want
for the guard report. We've got our finger on the pulse of the trainer.
You don't want some more Jason Tatum, Drew Hanlon training in the next month.
True.
That's gonna throw the whole thing off the track.
You're telling me.
Hey,
you're telling me.
I mentioned some other names in there too. No one wants this but the owners.
And Brian
too. NBA champion Lakers won't be happy to take the stage on Christmas. I think they do.
I'm in support of this. I'm all for December 22nd, but just because I want to get back to the Garden. Who knows if that's going to happen? The other thing here is fans. The league was hoping that they could have fans. Adam Silver said they were hoping for instant testing for next season. If we're talking January versus December, vaccine, any of that stuff, like none of those things are coming, whether they do January or December. So you might as well do December. They can wait till March and try to get fans in there for March. But if it doesn't happen, you just waited for 3 months for nothing. So why not do the early date?
I think initially they really had their fingers crossed, hoping that they would have fans. I think they were banking on that, at least a couple thousand or something. Just let us have some fans, because they know a lot of the revenue, that's where it comes from. I mean, uniforms, things that are purchased. You
might get that.
The NBA. I mean, yeah, you might get some of that, but they lost a lot of that. A lot of these purchases, a lot of the stuff, concessions, that all that is included. And then you look at where we are now, not a lot has changed. They're not going to open the doors for fans just like that, especially a couple of months away. So I think that really changed things for the NBA. And they're like, look, we have to do Christmas now.
They're going to have to allow. They're going to have.
I'm saying they have.
I would go another bubble in Florida, started in February, play all the games outside with fans
and reporters.
Sweet.
Outside DLNS.
Or they could, get the CLNS peanut gallery to produce the crowd noise. They'll just have to change the rules.
We can do
Outdoor
that.
games would be unreal. You get the weather's in play now.
I love it. Ripping butts.
Play it at Rucker.
Play it Rucker, dude.
There's an idea.
That'd be an awesome wrinkle. Like, we'll play with fans outside.
Yeah, that's the only way we'll do an all. At least that should be the All-Star game.
Yeah,
if they want to have an All-Star game.
That'd be awesome.
Where's it?
Yeah.
We never thought they'd do the bubble, and they did. So
get creative. You gotta get creative.
I think we can all agree that the bubble was a great success. Not to bring back Borat, but it won't be renewed. I don't think.
You don't think?
No, I don't think you'll get the players to do a full season in the bubble. No.
Probably not.
No chance.
I don't think it's even being discussed.
They're gonna have to get creative with travel, how teams are traveling. I heard they're going to try to do it maybe like baseball
in here, but the problem is you're going into indoor spaces now, and it's different. What
do you guys think of this?
The main problem is you're letting the players live their lives. Happen. So
and look what just happened at the World Series bubble.
You're going to deal with COVID, people getting COVID. That's going to happen.
Wait, what were you going to say?
So this is one thing that crossed my mind a couple of days ago. And this is only because this was an idea that was thrown out there before the bubble, right? Remember all those wacky ideas that were out there? People were talking about little mini tournaments and whatnot. What if the NBA were to start the regular season where teams had to face their division opponents for a couple of weeks? That will minimize travel. You don't have to go too far. I mean, look at Boston. We're talking Boston, New York, Toronto, a little far, but Philly.
Toronto won't be in Toronto.
Traveling. What's that?
That's what we have to talk about too. Right? Where's Toronto going? Louisville just got knocked off the table,
baby.
Wherever they'll be, or what is it? What are you talking about? Kansas City, whatever. I mean, I
aren't
think
divisions toast though? Aren't we rest in peace divisions?
And could be a possibility, maybe just to start things, and then play the rest of the teams play each other. I mean, obviously East and West are already limited, and maybe you cut that back a little bit, but for the most part, you'll see somewhat of what we're used to.
Let's bring the Raptors to Boston. Let's do it.
Bobby would love that.
He's looking at that one. He's like, "Where's Toronto on that
one?" They need a new home. Boston. We've had 2 teams before in a league. Let's do it.
Two straight thoughts just to end it. One,
Portland.
We talked about the bubble. It is amazing that it went off the way that it did, and it really only happened because Keith Smith of Celtics blog wrote it into existence, which is frigging phenomenal. A guy was like, "Hey, why don't they just do it down there?" Wrote about why it would work. NBA thought That's a phenomenal idea. Then they did it. Really,
we're still waiting for Keith to get his due,
and he didn't. They sent him,
he didn't even get an invite.
They sent him a note. Like somebody sent him like something, said thanks, but that's it. But
Disney got $190 million from that transaction. So
and he just wrote it into existence, and it happened, which is amazing.
You think they let him have a couple of guests or not?
He made a lot of people a lot of money. I hope he gets his fair share.
Unbelievable, right? Number 2, and we didn't talk about it on this pod, but we will eventually. Is I do think one of the things to look forward to. They posted odds for the season in terms of Eastern Conference. And I will save this full discussion for the next one. But it was the Milwaukee won in the East, of the team most likely to make the finals, followed by the Celtics tied with the Nets. And I think that Nets dynamic is going to be so interesting. So I do want to get into that in the next podcast. I just want to leave everybody with this one tweet from John Hollinger.
We're going to do a full podcast bashing the Nets. I can't wait.
So just as a little primer, John Hollinger, who writes for The Athletic now, had this tweet, which I thought was great. It was, or I think he said this on a podcast. The Nets have Kevin Durant. This is about the Nets. Everyone's saying they're going to be great next year. And he put it into perspective. The Nets have Kevin Durant recovering from an Achilles injury, Kyrie Irving recovering from a shoulder injury, and 15 other players recovering from spending a year with Kyrie Irving.
Yeah. And now,
so true. Yeah, that'll go over real well.
I love it.
Now they got their month of trade rumors coming too.
The guys coming off of surgeries are the poor bastards who were healthy all year that had to sit and deal with Kyrie Irving for a year.
We haven't even gone through trade season with them yet.
And have to
right. Kyrie's basically said, we got to get rid of all these other,
Jared Allen.
So there could be a fire still over there, but we'll get into that.
That's the other thing. One trade's been reported. One trade that hasn't been officially done, but I guess it's been talked out. What are the odds that's the Nets?
Yeah, right. Who knows? But like I said, we can go on them for a while, but I want to get into that in the next one. We'll see if there's more NBA news, but we had a ton here. Gordon Hayward, we don't know what's going to happen. We'll keep talking about it. Daryl Morey to the Sixers, interesting dynamic. Could shift things around in the East, so we'll see what happens there. Could create some interesting player movement if people do what Morey thinks he might do and come in there and start to shake it up. And obviously could make the Sixers a little bit more competitive here with the Celtics in the East.
Maybe give him a pulse.
Puts them back, it gives them that kick that they might need. And then the NBA trying to rush through the start date. We've got the draft coming up. We've got free agency right after it. And then bang, we're off and running. So, we're almost in full swing. Bobby is doing his homework. So we are going to get some draft talk soon. Right, Bobby?
For sure. Yeah.
Okay. So we'll start talking about some prospects too. They're here at 14. We want to see them trade up. So we're going to look at guys they might get up to 6, 7, 8, 9 range and get. We'll start telling you about these guys and maybe get a little excitement going. We'll see what happens there. Again, could be more talks of trades, trading Golden State with the 2. We'll see there. But there's tons still going on. We'll be talking about it throughout the very short offseason with Josue Pavone, Heavy.com, Jimmy Toscano, Bobby Manning from Celtics Blog and CLNS Media. I'm John Zanis. We will see you guys next time.